Hello, Booktube. I have a tag for you today on Tag Thursday. I have suddenly a backlog of tags. A whole bunch of really good ones have come out. Really good, meaty discussion tags that of the type that I love. A lot. I love tags just in general. They're an integral part of Booktube. But I confess, I lose a little bit of patience with, what character would you have, Camembert with, or what book has orange on the cover, something like that. I lose a little patience with that because those aren't telling me anything about you. And I'm here to learn about you. I'm here to learn about your reading. And there have been a bunch of tags lately that are just exactly right for that. And that also do something I mentioned yesterday, which is bring new people up to speed. Our channels are all encountering new people all the time who aren't necessarily going to go digging through all of our back catalog for answers to their questions. So a tag that covers a little bit of familiar ground is a perfect opportunity to get everybody up to speed. And so I'm going to keep doing tags. I'm going to do a tag a day until I dig out of my backlog. And the one that I'm looking at today is the Quarter Year Crisis tag, which was created by Roisin's Reading, which is a new channel to me. I love it. I've watched a bunch of videos now. And I was tagged by Shelly Swearingen, a fellow miniature schnauzer owner. And this is all about the fact that we are a quarter of the way into the year, which, some people don't care. Some people don't pay any attention. I pay very much attention because I am tabulating all year long for my epic year-end best and worst books list. At the end of every year, I come out with a list of the best 10 and the worst 10 books in the 15 or 16 genres that I read. And I've been doing it for a very long time. I might not be a household name as a critic, but I guarantee you there are large parts of the publishing world and the critical world that kind of hold their breath when a new category comes out, especially if it's the one and only category they read in, which tends to be the case for most of my critical colleagues. Most of them have families and personal hygiene, and they sleep 10 hours a night and want to sleep more if they could. They long for it all day long, and jobs and whatnot. So they don't get as much reading done, and so there'll be one who will read only new books about the American Revolution, or one who will read only new murder mysteries, and so on down the line. That's not me, but a lot of those friends and colleagues will look at a forthcoming list and think, "Oh my God, how well did I do?" So I do pay attention very much to the fact that the year is now a quarter over. I am starting at the quarter mark of the year. That is when I start to take the list that I've generated so far and start collating them. Just start. This is still a doldrum period for American publishing. And that's going to pick up a little. Certain genres are going to pick up a little at summer, when summer is here officially. And of course, in most genres, will skyrocket in productivity in the autumn and the late autumn and early winter. So this is still very preliminary. But what are some of, if I make out my categories and number them and leave the numbers blank, is there one or two books that can go on one or two of those lists? Maybe one book on each list just to get things started? Is there anything I'm sure about, no matter what the rest of the year has in store? Of course, that doesn't hold true, even no matter how sure I am. I can't count the number of years where in March, when I started to look at the quarter of the year, I was sure of X, Y, and Z, and by October, they were long gone from the lists because they'd been beaten by other books. So I do pay attention. So that's what this is. This is the Quarter Year Crisis book tag, where you look at your reading for 2022, which is now one quarter over. So question number one is, how many books have you read so far in 2022? And as of this morning, I have read 272 books. That will be increasing before the clock strikes midnight. That will be increasing by at least one book before the day is over. But right now, it's 272 books. Question number two is, have you already found a book that you think might be a 2022 favorite? If not, what was your favorite book that you read, and what that wasn't quite 5 stars? And as I have found so far in 2022, 2 books that do that thing that we all want books to do. 2 books where I started out going, okay, interesting, all right, that's a little intriguing, all right, that I know where you're doing that, okay, I know how long that must have taken you to research, and then suddenly that changes. Suddenly the magic of reading completely takes over, and you are lifted out of yourself. The hairs on your hand go up. you are thrilled, you are electrified, you love the book, and you want to hand it to other people, you want to recommend it to people. I read a lot of books in a given year, and I read quite a few of them for duty. They're just work. But I'm no different than any other reader when it comes to that. That is the reason that I read. I firmly believe that's the reason we all read, to get that feeling, when you're reading. And so far this year, only 2 books have produced that feeling. 2 out of 272, I have to think, is a very, very bad showing for 2022. Now, maybe 2022 is just off to a slow start, but that's a remarkably low percentage. And the 2 books, I've talked about them on this channel already. One was M, Son of the Century, by Antonio Scarlatti, a big Italian historical novel that was translated to English by Anne Milano Appel, and that's coming out in April. And it is about, believe it or not, it's a 700-page historical novel about the formative years of Benito Mussolini, which you would think would mean it wouldn't be that enjoyable. It's incredible. Absolutely incredible. I mean, it won every award that was on offer when it came out in Italy, including the greatest award of all, which is not official, which is that it sold hundreds of thousands of copies. That's a big award on its own. That means more to me than any award ceremony. But I have seen that happen with books that won the Strega Prize, and once they make their way into English, I don't know what gets lost along the way, but they definitely don't do it for me. So I went into this thing with my guard up, and it's great. Absolutely great. And the other truly great book that I have read so far this year, only 2, is also another novel. It's Young Mongo by Douglas Stewart, the author of Shuggie Bain. This is his sophomore novel. By all the metrics of the fiction writing world, it should be bad. And it isn't. It isn't at all. It's brilliant and heart-wrenching and also eloquent. There were critics, to put it mildly, to be generous about it. There were critics when Shuggie Bain was getting lots of attention that poo-pooed it on explicitly racist grounds. I mean, yes, the author could put the sentence together well, but he's not black. I mean, yes, he's gay, and he's really good at what he does, but he's not black, and I'm a racist, so I really need that to be true. If that's not true, then I'm going to sort of poo-poo the novel anyway, no matter how good it is. Again, stop me if you've heard that kind of thinking before, but in 2022, it is not only fashionable again, it's de rigueur. It's absolutely required in certain aspects of academia, especially, but also publishing, and the Academy Awards and whatnot. You don't come here for a rant, do you? My point being that all of the people that carped about the supposed mediocrity of Shuggie Bain were wrong. I read more fiction than all of them put together. So I know what I'm talking about. They were wrong. It was brilliant. It was a brilliant debut. And Young Mongo is fantastic. Just fantastic. The problem, you can see it right away, is that I am not a snooty, patooty, Mount Helicon style book critic. I know some of them. You could even say that My Best Human Friend is one of them, the best of them all. But I am not writing for eternity. I'm not that talented. I'm writing for you. I'm reviewing things for you. I'm reading things for you. I'm reading and reviewing for my viewership, my readership. You'll just have to put up with the dog barking in the background. I wish you could see. You can't really read Frida's posture or see her face, but when she sees the dog acting up like that, her facial expression is so precious. It's just, oh, come on, get over yourself. She has such little patience with dogs. She's okay if they mind their P's and Q's and approach her respectfully, but when they're acting up like that, oh God. Anyway, my point was that when I'm doing all this advanced reading and I'm reading books, I'm doing it, a lot of it for work, a lot of it for commissions and whatnot. But ultimately, my ultimate goal is to find books that I can recommend to people. That was the only element that stayed true even when I was a bookseller in a retail bookstore and not a reviewer. My goal is always to recommend. So you can see the problem, right, with the 2 great books from 2022 that I've read so far. One is a gay novel. That rules out a huge percentage of the people that I would recommend it to. Unfortunately, it does, but that's just the reality on the ground. A huge percentage of the people that routinely ask me for book recommendations are also bigots. They might be nice people. You might be happy to chew the fat with them in line at the grocery store, but they don't like gay people. out of sheer bigotry, just for bigotry, not because a gay person ever, did something, accessorized them wrong or something. No, they're just bigots. That's all. So if they say, "Have you read anything really great so far this year?" I know you're reading a lot. I had one friend we met on randomly on a dog walk, and she said, "I know you're a big reader. You probably read 50 books so far this year." And she wanted to know, "Do you have any recommendations?" And I know her well enough to know that I can't recommend Young Mongo to her. She might smile because she likes me and she likes Frida, but she wouldn't even consider reading a gay novel. Not in a million years. And the same thing is true with a 600-page, 700-page historical novel about Benito Mussolini in his 30s. How am I supposed to recommend that to anybody? I want to find a couple of books in 2022 that I love and that I can recommend widely. Although you don't have that exemption. You people don't have that exemption. I have proved my bona fides on this channel many, many, many times. You are more along the lines of my old customers at my old information desk. A new customer, I would have kid gloves. Old customers, I did not tolerate them saying, "Well, you could be wrong." After they've had 30 great recommendations from me. You, I'm not letting off the hook. You should read both these books. Get them from your library and read them both. But those are, to answer the question, 40 minutes ago, there was a question. In answer to the prompt, those are the only two so far. Very depressing. Then number 3 is any 1-star / least favorite books of the year. Well, I don't give books stars, but I read everything. And I have encountered a number of truly horrible, noxious, dangerous, evil books in 2021. A number of them. I listed 3 here. One is The Great Reset by Glenn Beck, who absolutely does not believe in the Great Reset. He is just the grandfather of all grifters. The Great Reset, no matter what Glenn Beck's roastingly awful book says about it, no matter what his book says about it, it's anti-Semitism. Okay? When you hear someone, some talking head, some lunatic fringe on, Nazi TV or on YouTube or whatever, talk about the Great Reset, they are talking about Jews. Once you scrub away the new vocabulary, you get down to Jews are trying to take over the world by eliminating all the goyim. It's very old and it's very boring and it's very dangerous that it is current all over again. When you hear a alt-right fascist refer to the globalists, that's what they're talking about. They're talking about the Jews. It is absolutely no mistake that the cover of Glenn Beck's book, which is all about the Biden tyranny, Joe Biden's tyranny, it is no mistake that prominent on the cover of that book, as big as Joe Biden, is George Soros, who, for these new anti-Semites, is the living face of the thing they hate and want everyone else to hate and want to exterminate. They want to exterminate. They're now calling it a fight for survival, but again, stop me if you've heard that kind of language before. That is exactly how it's been phrased every time it's been tried in history. So The Great Reset by Glenn Beck. Also, a book we saw on this channel, One Damn Thing After Another by disgraced Trump lackey Attorney General William Barr, where he's on the cover doing this like a fat little George Patton, and that's all his book is I was the one common sense guy in this whole government, and I was doing all that I could to save things. That's just the way I did it. If you question me wrong in this interview, I'm going to look at you like I want to punch you and then throw you in an illegal jail. A truly dangerous psychopath, lickspittle of Donald Trump's, who, like so many dangerous psychopath lickspittles of Donald Trump, is deciding to try to eat his cake and have it too by writing a memoir in which he says, basically, I knew this guy was crazy. I just hung around to try and save democracy or whatever. Horrible, noxious book. And another one is another thing that we've seen on this channel. It's by Andre Henry, and it's called All the White Friends I Couldn't Keep. And the book boils down to the fact that he is Jesus nailed on the cross, peacefully outraged. Just, Lord, forgive them. They know not what they do. I went to their book launch or their Soho apartment, and I said they were all virulent, sheet-wearing, Klan-level, active racists. That they teach racism to their kids, they preach racism on the street corners. They burn crosses on people's lawns. They are horrible, vitriolic racists. Not they are members of a society that has inherent racist qualities in it, that some of which they have not examined. But no, that they have examined all of those qualities and that they are clan-level, active racists. I said all of this at their Soho loft, and they didn't like it. I wanted to be applauded for calling all my former friends horrible bigots, and instead they didn't like it, so I couldn't keep them. I couldn't keep them as friends, Lord. I couldn't keep them as friends. Oh, by the way, Lord, I can't help but notice that you're usually portrayed as white, so I think you need to be better. We should probably cancel Lord. We should probably cancel God as well. That is the text. The subtext of the book is that he insulted all of his friends down to their DNA, right down to the deepest part of their personalities. And when they didn't like it, he couldn't keep them as friends. It's just horrible, horrible. So far, anyway, unfortunately, it's a very active sweepstakes. But so far, the front runner in the most racist book that I've read this year, which is, it's got some mighty big shoes to fill. It has the how to be an anti-racist shoes to fill, but you never know what the rest of the year will be. And that's just 3. So that's rampant anti-Semitism, rampant racism, and rampant fascism. I'll just trot it out by publishers looking to make a buck. And as long as they're in the modern American book ecosystem, I feel like I should read them. I feel that I'm duty-bound to read them. Might even review one of these. I don't really know. We'll see. Anyway, let's move on from the bad. Let's keep. We did this to try to avoid a rant. Number 4 is most read genre so far. Well, that would be fiction. Nobody ever believes that. Friends of mine have been saying this for 45 years. They've been saying, oh, I know you love World War II history, you love World War I history, you love the ancient Romans, dead Romans, dead Kennedys, and dogs. So, probably you aren't all that familiar with this latest navel-gazing auto-fiction Brooklyn wonderkind. No, I read more contemporary fiction than most people I know who only read contemporary fiction. So it wins by a fairly wide margin. The next is a book that surprised you. Here, it's another work in translation. The translation is by Alan Cameron, and I don't know whether or not to blame him. I haven't read the original. The book is Dante, A Life by Alessandro Barbaro. It got some talk in the Italian press, and it was translated into English by Alan Cameron, and I thought it was bad. Just bad. And a lot of it was gassy, it was digressive, it was trite. And a lot of its observances were trite, which ought not to be the case considering the history that Alessandro Barbaro has with Dante. But I kept wondering while I was reading it, is this the translator's fault? But a lot of what was bothering me about the book looked structural, which is what I look for. When I don't have the original, I look for whether or not the things that are bothering me are structural, right? So if the thing that's bothering me about some translated work in English is all the cliche idioms, all the tired turns of phrase, that sort of thing, that could easily be the translator. Sometimes, I'd say half the time, it is the translator, not the writer's fault at all. Maybe the translator just doesn't know any better than that. Unfortunately, when you're dealing with a translator, you're dealing with their talent level, not yours. But most of what was bothering me about this book looked structural. So I don't think the translator's at fault. I don't know one way or another. And because the book was so lackluster for me, I don't think I'll go to the bother of getting a copy of the original just to do a line-by-line comparison. I think I'll just forget about it. Then number 6 is a book that's coming out in 2022 already, or that's come out in 2022 already, that you want to read but haven't. Oh, you name it. All the ones that I haven't caught up on. There are plenty of them that are out already in bookstores. There were plenty of, I don't think I missed anything that I really wanted to hit in January. But February, there were gaps some of them are still there, and too many to name. And March had a few. March has had a few. March still has a little time left in it for me to keep reading. And then, of course, at the beginning of every month, I always plan to do better. I plan to miss nothing in April. We shall see. Let's see here. Prompt number 7 is one goal you made that you're succeeding at. Well, despite what I just said, one of my goals for reading every year is to keep my nose just barely above water of the surging tide of new releases in the American mainstream publishing market in 15 or 16 genres that interest me. Instead of the feeling that I and plenty of you have had many, many times where you just feel like you're you're just drowning in books. There's no chance you can even get a toehold on anything at all, unless you extremely narrow your inquiry. So I will only read epic fantasy. And maybe, let's say you only read epic fantasy as a way of dealing with the overwhelming abundance of the book world. And let's say that you decided, okay, I only read epic fantasy, and I want to read every major mainstream epic fantasy that comes out in the American book market in 2022. You could conceivably do that. But you'd only be able to do it at the cost of jettisoning everything else. And the main reason you would have to do that is because, unlike me, you have a lot more calls on your time. I've maintained many times on this channel, I still maintain that if you didn't have those calls on your time, you could get to a lot more than you do without any trouble at all. Well, I don't have any of those demands. You're looking at the demand on my time. And you're looking only at the demand on my time, unfortunately, because you're not keeping your eyes on the prize. But I can dedicate my whole life to that. And I like the feeling of keeping my nose just barely above water. And I am just barely there. I am not being swept under by the tide of new American releases. And I plan to keep that up. I'm going to do a huge amount of reading this weekend to get a real nice turbo boost start to April. Then number 8 is one goal you made that you need to focus more on. That's the original tag creator's very gentle way of saying failing at. And for me, the answer is what it is every quarter of every year, which is indie publishers. I love them. I get a lot of, as the ProTube channels would say, value out of reading their works, but I'm always behind, always. Partially, in my own defense, you can see why, right? Partially, in my own defense, I can say that the reason for that is that the mainstream publishing world in the genres that I like helps me to keep abreast of it. I get emails from those publicists. I get those books in the mail. I am often commissioned to review those books. I am helped. The industry helps me to stay abreast of those things. I still go hunting, but the industry helps a lot there. Whereas, famously, there is no such industry for indie publishing. That's what you sacrifice in order to be an indie author. You're making a lot more profit per book sale. You're developing a much better, truer, and more organic relationship with your audience. You have, needless to say, a huge amount more freedom. But the thing you sacrifice is that. You sacrifice that ecosystem that brings your books to the attention of people like me. And I know that, and I don't like that at all. I wish that weren't the case. I wish that everybody read a lot more indie books than they do. And also wrote them, but that's a video for another time. So a goal that I really need to work on, and we're only a quarter of the way, and there's still plenty of time. A goal that I really need to work on is upping my game reading indie titles in the genres that I love. Now, I love 15 or 16 genres that I keep abreast of in the mainstream market. Realistically speaking, there isn't a whole lot that's worth my time, I don't think, in indie history or biography or military history or natural history or science. Typically, if you're going to write a book like that, you need institutional support, not just institutional broadcasting. Typically, you won't do that. That won't happen. And so the burden is a lot less, which means the responsibility is a lot more. So that's a reason why I should be doing more of this, not less. Yes, there'll be functionally no biography or history that's indie that I need to read, but there'll be a ton more fiction. And genre fiction, oh my God, tons of it. I need to get better at it. I've done fairly good so far this year, but I could do a lot better. Also, I could do a lot better at pumping this stuff up. Here I am saying I wish more people knew about indie. I have a platform. It's tiny compared to YouTube, but I have a platform. I could be getting some indie authors on here to talk about their books. I need to get that whole thing in better motion with the rest of the year. And then the last prompt here is a new to you booktubers / bookstagrammer / booktoker in 2022 that you would recommend. And to wipe the slate clean here, I went to every booktuber's best friend, the Booktube newbie tag. If you are contemplating starting a Booktube channel, A, you should definitely start a Booktube channel, but B, do the Booktube newbie tag. It's how people search for new arrivals on the scene, for new people in the community. It's just incredibly useful. You don't have to do it, but it will help people to find you. And so I went to YouTube and typed in Booktube newbie tag, And then I narrowed my search in terms of time so that it was some of the most recent ones and just started watching. And I saw a whole bunch of stuff that turned me off, a whole bunch of stuff that I didn't like. But I found a whole bunch of stuff that I did. So I was going to stick to 3, but I have 4 instead. I have 4 new channels. I'll leave links to them down below. The first one is, her channel is called A Cup of Chamomile. I'm not sure that she introduces herself in her BookTube newbie tag. But one thing that's loud and clear in that tag is her droll sense of humor. I think when you watch, you will immediately subscribe. Then the next channel is Bibliosophy, or Bibliosophy. The channel's proprietor is Sophie, and she has made the name Bibliosophy, which is also Bibliosophy, or well, whatever it is. She's mighty impressive. She's a tremendously engaging presence on camera, but she's going to make you feel a little dumb. Right? Reading Shakespeare in French at age 5 or whatever. It was pretty impressive. Then the next one is Andre Should Be Writing, and I say that with apologies because in his BookTube newbie tag, he pronounces his first name Andre with a great deal of apparatus that I'm not adding to it. I'm just saying Andre, which is a bald way of saying his name. But he is a software developer and also is writing on the side. Hence, the name of his channel is a little chiding reminder to himself every time he makes a video. But in his video, he very charmingly says that he's looking for a community. He's looking for the famous thing that we offer here, which is that you'll get to meet people. You'll get to know other readers. And the last channel is It's on My Hold List. The channel's proprietor's name is Megan, and she also is a software developer with a lot of other talents as well. A lot of artistic and visual talent. A lot of these people are just tremendously talented outside of BookTube. I watched these 4 videos, and naturally I started in my mind to review them because I'm a reviewer. I review everything, and I looked at them all and thought, well, if this is indicative, and it is, of the kind of people that we're getting every month, then the word about BookTube is reaching the right kind of people, that's for sure. Smart, passionate readers who are also funny, personable. I would strongly suggest that you go and watch all of the videos that I'm going to link down below and subscribe if you like what you see, if you like what you hear. The only problem, I don't have a problem with any of these channels, but the only caution that I have about any of them is that one of the elements of earning a subscription is something that you can't know when you're watching these videos, which is persistence. Will they stick with it? How many promising booktubers have we all seen that make a video, maybe make another video, maybe a third, and then just quit? They just drift away. I have a suspicion, if I had to lay money on it, I would say that is going to happen with all 4 of these channels, not because of any judgment on their character, but because all 4 of them make it clear that they have abundantly busy lives outside of BookTube. I know a lot of you do too, and you still make videos, but I'm hoping that all 4 of these people stick around. Very much so, hoping, because we're adding such fantastic voices to our little corner of BookTube all the time. It's just great. Although, I forget which channel it was. It might have been Megan. It's on my whole list. One of these channels says, when you get to the part of the BookTube newbie tag that says, what are some questions that you would ask your favorite booktubers? One of the people on this list, I forget who it was, said, well, I'd ask you, how do you find the time to make 2 videos a week? I actually chuckled just a little at that. It still makes me chuckle just a little, since 2 videos a week would be, you would all raise up in arms. It'd be torches and pitchforks if I dropped down to 2 videos a week. but nobody thinks about BookTube and thinks I'll make 5 videos a day, so that's an outlier. But anyway, that was the quarter-year crisis book tag. And I want to tag the 4 people that I'm linking to down below. I have no idea if they watch my channel, but if they maybe follow the link back, consider yourself tags. I definitely want to know these answers about all 4 of you, but I also tag all the rest of you, right? Because the one thing we all have in common is the calendar. It's the year is a quarter done for all of us. How's your year shaping up? How's your year shaping up? What will your answers be to these questions? What are the highlights and lowlights? What are the things you need to work on? We're a quarter in. that's a good place to assess. So let me know. I very much want to hear that. But anyway, I'm going to wrap this up, but I'll be back with another tag tomorrow. Thank you, BookTube.